This Ramadan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It is exactly 12:06. It is the mid-morning talk with me, Julie Alli. I will be keeping you company throughout the month of Ramadan, every Wednesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 1. And I do hope that you will find the discussions and the guests most inspiring indeed. Another very inspiring guest, somebody who really touches lives in a very positive way and helps them turn their lives around and helps mend families, is Dr. Nazeem Abrahams. He is with Lighthouse on the Horizon. It is a therapeutic community facility, and he's going to be talking to us today about the Mubarak month of Ramadan. And for those of us who have loved ones who suffer from substance abuse, we do know that we want them to be safe. We want them to try and connect spiritually to the month of Ramadan, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the Holy Quran, and maybe, just maybe, that is our fervent dua, inshallah, that the month of Ramadan helps them turn their lives around. Dr. Nazeem Abrahams, salamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Shukran so much for having me.
Thank you. We always love having you on the show because, as I've just indicated, the type of work you are doing at Lighthouse on the Horizon truly gives hope to families and it assists people turn their lives around. But let's talk about the month of Ramadan. When you have patients in rehab and Ramadan comes around, there are lots of things that's going on for the patient and their families. For the patient, maybe they're not too committed to their rehab stint. They may see this as a cop-out, a way of getting out of the system, of getting out of rehab, probably fixating about their next fix, or perhaps think that maybe if I go home and reconnect with my loved ones and they support me and support me fully, inshallah, I'll be able to be safe out in the real world again. And it will be a testing time for me and my loved ones to see how much progress I have made. Your thoughts on it? If somebody is in for 3 months and it happens to be in the middle and Ramadan comes about in the middle of their stint at rehab, is it a good idea for them to go home and just get tested regularly and given all the necessary support for them to stay clean and perhaps enjoy the spirituality of the month of Ramadan?
A very interesting topic, Auntie Julie, very interesting topic, and I must say very ironic because, you chose a topic that is a challenge that we're faced with almost every year when it comes to Ramadan. We have every patient coming with all sorts of reasons and excuses to want to be with their families. So I'm going to start by saying, and I can only speak for the therapeutic community, please, and I'd like our listeners to understand that I speak from a perspective, from the TC perspective, from the therapeutic community perspective. So first and foremost, a big part of our program, which is part of the 4 structures of the program, is a spiritual, the spiritual side, which is really based on the intellectual enhancement, the induction seminars, tutorial recreation, and also value systems. So having said that, when we read Salah 5 times a day, we strive towards a righteous living in the practices of the therapeutic community process. So basically, in short, we're really living the Sunnah in the center and at that time. So where a better place to be than to be at the center where you're in a safe environment, you have absolutely no outside influences at all, and you are faced with therapeutic processes incumbent with the Salah 5 times a day, with reading of Quran, with making dhikr, reading Tarawih Salah, and every other attribute that one needs to indulge in the beautiful month of Ramadan. You have the opportunity right here at the center without having any negative influences at all. So absolutely no. My answer to the question, is it a good idea? No, it's not a good idea, because I can't even see you having the opportunity of doing what you're going to be doing here at home. Because at home, you're going to be comfortable, you're going to be complacent, you're going to have time and influence by many other things. Whereas here, your focus is purely on what it needs to be, your healing process, and even more so in the month of Ramadan, engaging in all the positives of what we should be as a Muslim in the month of Ramadan.
And a lot of, a lot of people who suffer from substance abuse, I believe that that is the new terminology, and they're not referred to as drug addicts any longer. A psychiatrist who, she's in the family, said to me that, the politically correct terminology now is people who suffer from substance abuse, because it is in fact a disease, and they don't use the word drug addicts or drugging any longer. Be that as it may, that's just aside. You'll also have people, then let's look at two other issues, which is very relevant to what we're talking about. Families who then agree, agree with their loved one who is in a facility like yours, and say, all right, stay there for the month of Ramadan, but for the last 3 days or 2 days, or possibly even the day of Eid, let's have an agreement amongst us. We would love you to be home with us. We can't deprive you of that day, a day of love and a day of family. And then they reassure you that the person will be monitored, drug tests will be done, and right after the day of Eid, a day of family, a day of celebration, that they will come back to the center and serve their term for as long as they meant to be there. Your thoughts on that?
So let's take a step back and let's look at how much time that individual actually spent at home before he was in rehabilitation. Only like 90% of the time he was rather in the street, or where he's with his buddies and with his friends, rather than being at home. If it came to eat, if he was sober enough to be at the lunch table, he would be. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have been at the lunch table anyway. And people know this. This is the reality. This is the haq. This is the truth. So why now all of a sudden, because he's in a rehab center, and because he's sober, you now want him to be able to spend that time with you? I understand, rather than to be understood, which is one of our philosophies. However, I want people to understand that one of the things that as we would say, politically correct word to say is also the new word is substance abusers or the service users. So in social development prefers service user. So the service user at the time, before using the services of the treatment center, didn't care much for his family anyway, or to spend time with them nonetheless. And when he did, he was so high, he was never really present. He may have been in but out. So now he's in a rehabilitation center. He's actually sober. He's refrained from using. He's going through a healing process. And now we want him to be back there with them. I understand, again, like I say, rather than to be understood. However, one of the biggest faculties, or one of the biggest situations or biggest problems that we have with service users is that they take things for granted. They take people for granted. They don't have a value system. They don't appreciate. How better than to let him not be a part of that and miss it whilst being sober, so that he or she could actually place a true, sincere value to those people that they're missing.
Okay, point taken. It is exactly 12, 12:15. Let's take an ad break and we'll come back with you to continue this discussion.
A better education, from books to files to rulers. In fact, any access or accessory any accessory we need. Freedom Stationery. Education for the nation. What does accessory mean?
This Ramadan, spread the love with Sunshine D margarine, the perfect addition to your seri table for spreading, baking, and cooking. Sunshine D is rich in essential vitamin A, E, and D, and is the tastiest way to get their day or night started. Sunshine D tastes nice, no lies.
At Sentio, our Invest for Good philosophy is based on a genuine desire to use our investment skills for the benefit of broader society by investing responsibly, giving charitably, and developing talent that will transform the investment industry. Visit www.sentio-capital.com for more information about our Sharia investment products and start saving with us today. Sentio Capital. Invest for good. Sentio Capital Management is an authorized financial services provider.
These days, I'm more health conscious than ever. So tonight, it's stir fry for dinner, cooked in healthy Helios pure sunflower cooking oil. Helios is pure sunflower goodness, packed with omega-6. That's good for your heart, and is approved as part of the Heart and Stroke Foundation eating plan.
Dinner's ready!
Helios, pure sunflower cooking oil. A healthy family is a happy one.
The Messenger of Allah ﷺ was asked, which charity is best? He replied, a drink of water. Africa. Every day, 2 billion people wake up and have no access to water and sanitation. Sponsor a water well for 14,800 rand, a borehole in Afghanistan for 49,500 rand, or a borehole in Africa for 55,000 rand with Africa Muslims Agency. Give water as a means of Sadaqah Jariyah today. Call AMA on 011 834 8685 or donate online. Africa Muslims Agency, commemorating 35 years of empowering, educating, inspiring.
Salam Media, your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
It is exactly 12:18 on News Pod, and I thought that would happen, didn't I warn you? It's not news and views. It is the mid-morning talk show with me, Julie Alli, and our guest is Dr. Nazeem Abrahams. He's with the Lighthouse on the Horizon Therapeutic Community Facility. Welcome back, Nazeem. And Anonymous Muslima is wanting to know more about your facility. Where are you based? And what sort of a cause do you actually, what sort of a cause do you run there? How long does it run for? And costs, if you don't mind. So please do share it with us. There must be other people watching us this morning who would like those details as well.
Okay. So obviously the therapeutic community program is based on a long-term program. It's not a short-term program. The program is lasting for 2 years long, but it's divided into 3 phases. The 3 phases is a primary care phase, and then an integration phase, and then an aftercare and maintenance phase. Each phase has its own individual treatment plan, ITP. Each treatment plan is devised by obviously myself and the individual and the circumstances of the individual. The first ITP would start off with a purification process, an induction process, to educate and empower the individual about the treatment program and how the program works with the 5 pillars, 4 structures, and so forth. The purification process is where we eliminate all drug metabolic toxins and toxicity levels, and we do that naturally through a particular acupuncture protocol, as well as high dosages of vitamins and sauna treatment. That could last up to about 21 days, and that during that process, we eliminate and eradicate all drug metabolic toxins and toxicity levels, bringing the chemically imbalanced person back to a chemically balanced person, so that we can be able to determine through the observations and also the history of the person, of the individual, we can then determine a treatment plan through the particular psychotherapy and psychotherapeutical processes. Through that, we will do individual counseling, group therapy, lots of group work, group therapy, individual counseling, which is one-on-one counseling. And then also following the ITP, but simultaneously coinciding with the individual ITP, with the individual treatment plan, is a standard program where we focus on the disciplines of the individual, the strengths and the weaknesses of the individual, and also apply a structured and rigid structured process and program, bringing discipline into those that are ill-disciplined, and also teaching them to be honest, sincere, consistent, and all of the rest of all of that, which will entail part of the program, which is then based on a lot of education, which is part of the rehabilitation process. Then towards the end, we have a relapse prevention process, which is again based on education and the strengths and weaknesses of the individual. Following from there, we then draft up a final ITP treatment plan for the individual to move into the integration phase. The integration phase will simultaneously be determined by that individual's strengths and weaknesses and the treatment plan that is devised for him. And before moving on to the aftercare and maintenance, that individual will have to be also determined by the progress made. So all three stages is determined by progress, not time. So you could, based on your input as an individual, based on your sincerity and your consistency, we could work from anything between 8 weeks to 6 months just on primary care, depending also on how severe the addiction process has been and how long you have succumbed to the addiction. The cost for the entire, yes?
Meaning that the longer you've been using, the longer is going to be your rehabilitation process.
It's always preferable. Always preferable, and I'll tell you why. You've practiced. Let's say you've practiced your addiction cycle for a period of 20 years. It's 20 years of learned behaviors you need to unlearn.
Absolutely.
And you're not going to unlearn that in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. You might be able to determine what it is you actually need to unlearn, but you're not necessarily going to unlearn it in that period of time. It will take you a much longer time to be able to unlearn those learned behaviors and relearn or reinculcate new and positive behaviors. Those that you may have had, that you were read with, which you've lost along the way, and those that you need to add to in order to strengthen yourself more so that you can have a more sturdy or strengthened recovery process. It's all about retraining the brain. If you look at it from a psychological perspective, it's about retraining the brain, and there's no way you're going to retrain the brain. Particularly if one look at the science behind it all, you've got cell memory, you've got tissue memory, you've got your own subconscious memories. That is very powerful and very strong, and those are the things that you need to retrain. And the only way of retraining that is by changing the negative with a positive. So if you're unlearning the negative, you need to change it with a positive, and by changing it with a positive, you need to actually apply that positive long enough so that it can become a part of you. So this is what rehabilitation is really about. So I really find it very difficult to understand how people can still think that they can go into a 21-day program, or they can do a 6-week program and everything's going to be okay. It's virtually impossible.
Okay, we also hear about the frontal lobe of the brain being damaged by long-term substance abuse. Once a person goes through a program like yours and sticks with it, let's assume, alhamdulillah, the person sticks and remains clean for a couple of months or years at a time, will the brain then, all of those damaged cells, etc., will they regenerate again?
It's very possible. It's very possible if there's a continuance of treatment, if there's a continuance of practicing of healthy rituals. It's very possible that the brain would be able to regenerate and redevelop itself and rebuild itself, if you like. Alternatively, less being said, you'd be able to live a normal life with the condition because you're disciplined. And one can take fair examples, like if you were born with like take Down syndrome, for example. You get people who's living that's got a Down syndrome disease or illness, and they're living normal lives. So you can live a normal life with that condition if it doesn't regenerate or redevelop itself.
Inshallah. So it's already 25 after 12. I can't believe how time flies. My final question to you then. You speak about, obviously, people who has been in long-term substance abuse. We also know that they go through a personality change. They just don't care any longer. They only fixate on their next fix, so to speak. Do you think that whilst they're at your rehab center or anywhere else for that matter, and you talk about learned and unlearned behaviors, will their personality revert back to who they were as you knew them perhaps before they started abusing substances?
If they follow the process and trust the process, the therapeutic community process, they'll even become better than they ever were. Because remember, in order for character, we're talking about character change now. In order for character to change, one's attitude needs to change and one's behavior needs to change, because attitude and behavior shapes character. And character is driven and fueled by a belief system. So what the focus point in TC is, in the therapeutic community program, is in fact to change, to learn individuals to change the negative attitudes into positive attitudes, change the negative behavioral patterns into positive behavioral patterns, which will be the direct result of reshaping and developing a healthy character, or a better character, which is then, in fact, in turn, fueled by a positive belief system and not a false frame of mind or a faulty belief system. So yes,
Okay.
it definitely, the question is yes, absolutely. That change can and will take place if the individual trusts the process and does what is required by it.
Substance abusers do develop a very manipulative personality. I think you're quite aware of that. Inshallah, after they go through therapy, and they go through rehab, however long they remain there, does that, as part of the process that you talk about, relearning what you lost along the way in your substance abuse days, do they revert or do they relearn how to stop being manipulative and being so selfish and so narcissistic? Is that a possibility?
Very much so. One of the things that we have at TC is the creed, where we literally say, I'm here because there is no refuge, finally from myself. Until I confront myself in the eyes and hearts of others, I am running. So literally right there in the first paragraph, you're already teaching somebody to understand the need and the desire to become sincere, to be honest, to be able to expose yourself, to expose your negativity so that you don't succumb to it any longer. And you need to not run from it and keep on running or seeking refuge in any lies, deceit, manipulation. You can't seek the refuge in any of that, And then we go further and say, until I suffer them to share my secrets, I have no safety from them. Afraid to be known, I can know neither myself nor any other. I will be alone. So as a substance abuser, you've been alone, stuck in the cycle and all this negativity. So you don't want that anymore. So you need to expose all of that. And that just eradicates the manipulation completely, because there's no desire for manipulation. You've exposed yourself. You have made peace with your wrongful actions. You have made peace with what you've done. You're now open to better and to learn better, and for the world to be able to see the difference and see the better within yourself. So yes, Auntie Julie, definitely. I'm a firm believer that manipulation just dies away. There's no desire for it. Remember, the manipulation really started because we had to, as substance abusers and service users, we had to defend our addiction in order for us to be able to continue our addiction. Now we have no reason to defend something anymore because we're ashamed of it. We're ashamed of what we've done, but we are open enough to be able to talk about it and expose it so we don't succumb to that shame and that guilt anymore.
My final question then, 2 questions. You're still going to give us the pricing, but let's assume you have a loved one that has served 3 months or however long in a rehab center and they are now home for Ramadan. How does the family support them? Because in their days of active addiction, people walked around eggshells around them. You know, you're too scared to set them off, saying the wrong thing, they're irritable, it's their way or no way, etc. How do you support your loved one when they come home from rehab? Do you still walk on eggshells, or do you call a spade in a
You call a
loving,
spade a
kind
spade.
way? In a kind way.
In a respectful manner, yes, of course. I mean, in order to gain respect, you need to give respect, and or you need to earn respect. You know. So, despite the fact that it might be between a parent and a child, I think that respect level still needs to be attained, and we need to show each other the respect that we deserve. However, I don't believe that treading around on eggshells around the substance abuser or ex-substance abuser or service user is what is required. Remember, this is part of the reason why they actually became entitled and why they felt that they had the right to be able to do what they were doing, because we allowed that. We allowed them to believe that they had that right. This is our home. You, the parent, it's your home. You giving this person a home, not because it's your duty, it's because it's his right. You know, I always say the hak of a child is completed by a parent after the parent has given him his name, housed him, clothed him, educated him, and fed him. That hak is finished, is done. The child now owes the parent for the rest of his life. But these days it's the other way around, and this is why youngsters think they can do that. But to answer your question, there's no walking on eggshells. We need to call a spade, and they need to do what any normal person needs to do. They need to honor and love and respect their parents and whatever their parents say.
Nazeem, boundaries are all important and you need to stick with them. Put down boundaries. These are my boundaries, and you stick with the boundaries. If not, then go someplace else. Am I right?
Absolutely. And as difficult as it is for some parents, and they must understand that we do understand that it is very difficult for them. But the more you entertain it, the more you're empowering the one thing that you want your child to rid himself from, the addictive cycle or the addiction or the addict that lives within. So this is something you both want. Even the child, he's tired of being tired, but he doesn't know how. So when you start enabling because you're codependent, you're not helping him at all. You're actually just helping him, or you're helping the addictive self or personality to get stronger, which places your child in more danger.
Never enough time. Very quickly, the pricing. Would you prefer people to go to your website?
Yes, or they can call me. They can call me directly. I've got absolutely no problem. The number is 083-544-8387.
Okay, and Lighthouse on the Horizon is obviously on the West Rand in Johannesburg. I think it's, can you just mention the name of, I've forgotten the name of the area that
okay, so it's in Wilrow Park, Park Extension 1, just off on Deckers Road, coming in towards Heldercrane and Wilrow Park, on the corner of Oak Cliff and Lemonade Street.
There you go. Always a pleasure talking to you. Undoubtedly, when one talks with you about these issues, you feel, you feel there is hope at the end of the tunnel for your loved one. Thank you indeed. Allah accept all of your efforts, inshallah.
Amen.
Till the next time, as always, keep us in your du'as.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair for having me. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was Dr. Nazeem Abrahams. He is with the Lighthouse, the director, in fact, of Lighthouse on the Horizon. It's a therapeutic community facility, and if you have a loved one battling substance abuse, perhaps that's the place you want to give a call to and have a long chat and take your loved one in for healing, inshallah.